I think between you and me, dividends are that much more important during a bear market because share price appreciation is not guaranteed. Actually, it's never a promise, but let's just go ahead and say that you buy into a stock for 20 bucks. By the end of the year, there's no promises that it's going to be 25 bucks when the sentiment among investors is just fearful and everyone is kind of scared. As such, dividends from high quality dividend compounders, dude, that income is almost guaranteed. So while the market behaves and dances up and down, and most days it's going to be red, the bright side in all of that are the dividends that come pouring in every single month or every 3 months like a wrecking ball. The key word that I want to call out is high quality dividend compounders. Whatever I just said goes right out the window if we're talking about a crappy, speculative company that has shaky financials, their revenue, their free cash flow is just decreasing, they're drowning in debt. No, we're not referring to them. And that's why on this channel, we like to invest into dividend compounders that'll turn your initial, $1,000 investment into $5,000 in a matter of XYZ years in the market. That wasn't financial advice. But anyways, in this video, we're going to be evaluating stocks that just increased their dividend payouts. We're going to go through each company one by one, and then towards the end of the video, I'll be giving you my personal rating and game plan as to what I'm going to do. So without further ado, let's get into it. Company number one is Wick Energy. Wick Energy, as the name might imply, is a utility company that is based and operates in the Midwest. They do natural gas and electricity. And between you and me, not really a fan of this company because when it comes to the utility companies, there's a bunch that are at the top, S tier or A+, high quality, very beautiful businesses. And then there are those utility companies that are kind of towards the bottom, that are kind of ugly, a little smelly, a little short. The ones that as investors, we don't want to invest into. And I say that as a guy that is invested into a few utility companies, mainly American Water Works, which is water sanitation and purification. And embarrassingly enough, Dominion Energy, which was one of my first investments ever in the stock market when I used to live in Virginia because I used to pay them a utility bill. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to invest into them so they can pay me right back in the form of a dividend. However, when I think about what Wick Energy is doing, powering houses, I think best in class has to be Next Era. I think it's like ticker symbol NEE. If I were to invest into a utility company today, knowing what I know, I would go with Next Era. Next on the list is Travelers Companies. They do insurance. For people that are going to travel abroad, whether it's for work or leisure. Do they even say that anymore? When you go flying or go on a flight? I remember 20, 30 years ago, that used to be the standard and the norm. Are you flying for pleasure or for business? Now, I don't even know if they ask that. Right? They just go right into putting on a glove and shoving something up your butt to see if you're trying to smuggle anything. And I don't know, airport etiquette has just changed for the worse in my opinion. And then we also have Kinder Morgan. I think they're in the oil and gas pipeline business. Not exactly a fan of that. And then there's Costco. Everybody and their ex-wife knows what Costco is. High quality business model. Their fundamentals and financials are growing year after year at almost a double-digit rate in almost every single category, which is wild to see and witness because they operate in the retail space for the most part. But also we have Sonico products, and Sonico's in the business of producing packaging across all different sectors and industries, including food, CPG companies, and industrial goods. So there's that. And then there's Sanofi, which is a pharmaceutical company. No bueno, I don't like pharma stocks. And if you're curious as to why I just said that, I made a video on why I would never invest into pharmaceutical stocks, despite having worked as a strategy leader in one of the biggest pharma companies in the world. And there's Ohio Valley Bank, a financial. There's Johnson & Johnson. This seems to be a favorite among the dividend investing community. I still would never invest into them. There's Constellation Brands. They're in the business of liquor, wine, and beer. And if you know anything about what's happening with market trends and the consumer behaviors, less and less people are consuming alcohol, especially here in North America. So their business model, at least in the next 2 to 4 years, not looking too bright unless things change. And then we also have Agree Realty, which I would argue is the cousin, the better looking cousin, yes, I admit it, 2, Realty Income Corporation. It's a commercial real estate REIT. And to be honest with you, it's a very high quality dividend compounder with cheese, but I'm getting ahead of myself later. We'll dive into that. And there's also Fastenal. They provide equipment and protective gear to those that work in factories, warehouses, and fulfillment centers, kind of like a vending machine thing. And we also have Procter & Gamble. Dude, this is one of those companies where if you win the lottery and you come across a ton of cash in your pockets and you don't know what to do with it, I mean, obviously most people, they're going to go to Las Vegas, blow, 20, 30, 40 grand here or there for a weekend to have fun. But after you get all of that out of your system, what do you do with that leftover cash? I honestly think there's a few that I think are safe and steady investments for the long haul, for 20, 30, 50 years. Procter & Gamble is one of those companies. McDonald's, Microsoft, there's not many. Because the stupidest thing that you can do after you win like $1 million or $5 million from a scratch-off lottery is to buy speculative crap or to gamble here and there. If you're going to play it smart, put it into something that is a reliable and a slow and steady compounder like Procter & Gamble. They basically manufacture and produce almost everything in the household goods aisle of a grocery store. Laundry detergent, body soap, shaving razors, and the list goes on and on. There's TJX companies. I literally just made a video about Ross, which is their competitor. They basically do the exact same thing. They buy last season's retail apparel, put it into a warehouse, and then bring it back out 5 years later down the road and sell it at a huge discount to consumers. And after doing my homework on Ross, I think TJ Maxx is probably going to be decent as well from what I saw with Ross. And then there's Devon Energy, ticker symbol DVN. I'm not particularly interested in any energy stocks except maybe Chevron and ExxonMobil if I were to invest, because they do it all, right? Upstream, downstream, midstream, and they're very diversified. But when it comes to Devon, if I were to invest into an oil and gas company, someone has a hammer right to my left kneecap, they're like, pick one, we're gonna smash it, I would go with Devon. But if I don't have a hammer about to smash my kneecaps, I wouldn't invest into them. And then we also have Occidental Petroleum. This company, 20 years ago, nobody knew what the heck they were. But once the news got out that Warren Buffett was buying deeply into it, they got a lot of fame and notoriety. Having said that and looking into them, I'm not interested in them. Even if Warren Buffett daddy likes them, doesn't mean I'm gonna like them. And then there's L3 Harris Technologies. They are featured in my military stocks video. I like them. That's all I'm gonna say. And then there's Williams Sonoma. I think I talked about this company a couple times in my past videos. Pretty good company, except for the fact that once I looked at their financials, dude, ever since 2022, it's just been dropping, decreasing, and declining year after year. Things are not looking too good for them. And then there's JP Morgan Chase, ticker symbol JPM. I was today going to make a video about the best bank and financial stocks, ranking and stacking 21 different bank companies against one another. But I decided to make this video first because that one is going to take like 20, 30 hours to film, edit, produce, and I'd rather just do this one first. And in my opinion, without doing the deep dive yet, I think JP Morgan Chase is probably the highest and the best quality bank stock that we have here in North America. That includes all of the Canadian stocks. I think JP Morgan Chase is that guy. He's good. And then of course, I'll confirm or correct myself once I make that best bank stock video. And then there's Dick's Sporting Goods. It's a retail chain where you can just walk in and buy anything related to the athletic endeavors, such as like golfing, basketball, running shoes, lacrosse, football, soccer. Funny enough, one of my best friends from high school, he worked there for a handful of years, and he had nothing but bad things to say, which I think is kind of funny, but he was the type of guy to complain about everything. So I'm not going to take his opinion too highly to evaluate and judge a company as a whole, but a company that sells soccer balls, footballs, cleats, and like golf clubs, honestly, like when I think about the retail business model, I think Amazon is just encroaching upon and taking over in almost every endeavor. But when I think about sporting goods, it's one of those things where when someone gets into a hobby, like they want to pick up golfing, you're not going to just buy a bag of golf clubs off of Amazon, right? You're going to want to go into a store, try it out, swing a little bit, Or if your little kid is like, Daddy, I want to play t-ball. You're going to go into the store, have them check out some of the bats, swing a little bit, see how it feels in your hands, and then most people will just order it on Amazon after that. But I feel like most Americans, once they get that hands-on experience with a sporting good apparel or equipment, I think they're just gonna buy it right there and then, especially if Dick's Sporting Goods does price matching, which I think they do. So if Amazon sells it for like $50, but at Dick's Sporting Goods it's $60, I think they'll price match it back down to $50. Would I ever invest into that company and that business model? No. And then last but not least, we have Colgate-Palmolive. This is a CPG company that makes a lot of different products in the household goods aisle, just like Procter & Gamble, but not to their scale and reach. Ticker symbol CL does toothpaste, laundry detergent, body wash. And if you're a creep or a pervert that's curious as to how I smell, funny enough, I actually use a bar of soap that's made by Colgate-Palmolive known as Irish Spring. It's a habit that I picked up in the military where we had to use a bar of soap. We weren't allowed to use liquid body wash back then. So I just used a bar of soap, and yes, never drop that bar of soap. It's not because something's gonna slip in, but it's because once you drop that soap, people kicking around, or they pee on you, or they slap your butt. It is what it is. I've been using Irish Spring for the longest time, so I like the product, but the business itself, and once I looked at their financials and fundamentals, I'm not gonna lie to you, they have me interested, but it's one of those things where it's like, if it's between Procter & Gamble and Colgate-Palmolive, I'm probably gonna go with Procter & Gamble 7 out of 10 times. The other 3 out of 10 times, I might sway my vote towards CL. It's not the best company in the world, but I might be a part of that conversation where it's like, hey, I won $5 million in inheritance or trust fund. What do? I think Colgate-Palmolive is one of those safe, steady compounders. It's not going to 10x your money, but it's certainly not going to go bankrupt overnight. That was not financial advice. That's just my opinion. If I win the lottery one day, I do have a list of stocks, like a list of 6 or 7. I'm willing to throw down and be like, hey, these are the dividend compounders that I'm willing to trust this cash flow with. SCHD, also a part of that conversation. And now I want to talk about how much their dividend changed by, like the growth rate. But before we do, I want to give a shout out and mention the team that I support in the English Premier League known as Tottenham Hotspurs. I don't know if you can see the flag. It's the one that's below the Seattle Seahawks one. But check this out. They're one of the worst teams in the Premier League, right? I think they're 17th place right now out of 20 teams, just above the relegation zone. And they just beat Frankfurt in the Europa League quarterfinals, and now they're going to the semifinals. Riddle me that. Frankfurt, what's the favorites going into that match, right? They're like number 3 in the Bundesliga. Dude, they're so good. I thought they were going to beat our socks off. Come to find out, we won. Okay, with a penalty kick. It wasn't like the most outrageous victory like Manchester United and their game against that Italian team. That one was pretty entertaining. My apologies, I just looked it up. Lyon is part of a League One, which is a French team. But anyways, it looks like it might be Manchester United versus Tottenham Hotspurs in the final. I'm pretty stoked because now we're going to the semi-finals of the Europa League. Like, that doesn't make sense. How does the worst team, or one of the worst teams in the Premier League, end up going to the semifinals for a major cup in Europe? Dude, that gets me so stoked. And the funny thing is, in the semifinals, we're playing against a Wi-Fi password team from Norway. What are they called? Bodo Glimt. Bodo Glimt. So if you can't tell by my voice, I'm really excited about what's going to happen. This has been the most roller coaster season as a Hotspurs fan. This is like my 3rd year supporting them, and I would argue it was the most devastating year. We lost so many freaking games this season. However, we're seeing success in the Europa League, so pretty excited. Anyways, back to the video. And as you can see on your screen right now, I have all of the companies prioritized by the growth rate of their dividend payout. So to help you understand what the heck I did in this table, let's just go over a few of them, okay? So row number 1, we have UPS. Their current dividend yield is 6.8%. And their old dividend every quarter or every 3 months, 90 days, that payout used to be $1.63. And check this out, they're so generous because they just increased their dividend payout and now it's going to be $1.64, which is a growth rate of 0.61%. And I have it color coded so it's helpful for us to distinguish between the ones that are really aggressively growing their dividend and the ones that are just sluggishly doing it. By the way, the older that I get, I'm in my mid-30s, the more that I understand how important the dividend is. Because it's the final output, the result, the consequence of a company doing all of the little things the right way. They're crushing it. All that to say, a high dividend yield and the growth rate thereof, it cannot be sustained if their financials are suffering and if they're struggling as a business operation. But on the other hand, if they're just exceeding their own expectations and the forecast and guidance they laid out and they're just cruising right by it, then they have the extra cash on hand to reinvest into the company or to reward the shareholders, and in this case, in the form of a dividend. And as we look at the bottom of this chart, we have Santify, row 21. Their current dividend yield is 3.1%. But check this out. The old dividend payout, $1.47, but now it's getting bumped up to $2.03, which is effectively a dividend growth rate of 37.8%. Now, I'm going to have to eat my shorts because this is a pharmaceutical company, but their financials and fundamentals must be looking pretty darn good for them to be aggressively increasing that dividend, because they could have, like other companies, just been like, hey, let's just stay conservative, play it safe, and let's just increase this dividend by, what's the middle numbers here? Most companies increase it by like what? 4.5 to maybe 5%. Right? That way they have that extra cash on hand just in case they run into emergencies, setbacks, or litigation risks. Pretty impressive and pretty awesome to see. And one thing that I want to call out, the competitors in the CPG space, Colgate and Procter & Gamble, they both increased their dividend payout at a mid-single-digit rate, which pretty funny. It just goes to show it's kind of like comparing apples to apples when it comes to those two companies. My apologies, post-editing. I decided to replace row 14 Devon Energy with JP Morgan Chase's NASDAQ Equity Premium Income ETF known as JEPQ. Currently trading for about $48.74 a share. JEPQ is not a traditional modality of a business operating in the stock market. Rather, it's a covered call income ETF of the NASDAQ 100. However, they did increase their dividend, I guess, month over month by 9.5%. Okay, so an illustration that I want to show you guys that helps put this dividend yield number into perspective is going to be shown on this screen. So for every $100 that you invest into UPS, because they have a 6.8% dividend yield, you can essentially expect $6.80 in dividends by investing into UPS. And the list goes on and on. I guess the biggest payout here would be JEPQ because their dividend yield is 12.5%. So $100 invested into JEPQ with fractional shares, I guess, in mind, $12.57 as your dividend payout. The smallest one on this list is actually Costco Wholesale, but their share price appreciation makes up for it. Yes, their dividend payout is tiny, but in the grand scheme of things and the total returns, I think Costco, don't quote me on this, is probably the best performer out of all 21 of these stocks. Before we go any further, I wanted to give a shout out to the sponsors. This video was made possible by the support on Patreon by viewers like you. Yes, that is me giving respect to PBS Studios. Dude, some of the best shows growing up were on PBS, like Arthur, Mr. Rogers, Zoom. When in doubt, when you feel like you're about to do something questionable, just ask yourself, would Mr. Rogers be proud of my action right now? The next time you're about to have road rage, would Mr. Rogers be frowning or smiling at you? Something to think about. But in all seriousness, I truly appreciate you guys on Patreon. I love you. At this point in the video, I'm going to give you my thoughts, opinions, and what I'm going to do. I already spoiled it by talking too much in the introduction of each company, but let's just go ahead and go a little further, okay? Number one, UPS. This is the only stock that I own already out of the 21 companies that we talked about here today. They're already in my portfolio. They're paying rent to me in dividends. Now, I've been a share owner of UPS for about 6 years now. And I watched them go up and down through the pandemic sell-off and through the highs of the e-commerce boom, and then watching them go down again. And it's just been a roller coaster ride. And their dividend yield right now is 6.8%, and their payout ratio, the traditional valuation, is pretty darn high. It's actually kind of scary. It's 97.19%. However, when I calculate it by their free cash flow, taking their free cash flow per share, $7.26, then their true payout ratio should be 90%, what you see right there, 90.3%, which isn't any better. It's way above my comfort threshold of 80%. So I'm not going to be surprised if in the near future, if they keep experiencing financial hardship and operational decline, of them cutting that dividend. Because if that payout ratio starts going above like 95% or 100%, I see UPS doing the exact same thing that happened to 3M a few years ago when they had to reduce their dividend payout, which I still don't think is going to be the end of the world. I'm not going to sell out of them. The only way I'll sell out of them is if they completely get rid of their dividend and they straight up admit that their future is looking really, really dark. If they say stuff like that, dude, I'm going to sell out, and I guess I'll just have to suck it up. And by the way, the 3 ratings are as following. Number 1, right here, pays rent in my portfolio. It's a company that I already own, so something about them in the past caught my attention, and I saw beauty in them at one point. Number 2 is going to be got my attention. But for one reason or another, I don't have them in my portfolio, and we'll talk about that. And then number 3 is, yes, they did increase their dividend, but I'm not interested. So another way of saying it's just not for me. Whereas this one got my attention is the rating I give to a company where I do want to buy them, but I'm waiting for, I don't know, the perfect moment, the right price point entry, or something else. So with that said, back to the evaluation, row number 2, Constellation Brands, absolutely not interested. No thank you. Number 3, Agree Realty. They got my attention, and I'll show you why. If we jump over and take a look at their 15-year performance in the stock market, this is a REIT that pays a monthly dividend, just like Realty Income Corporation, 630%. And when we compare their performance to that of the S&P 500, the standard, the benchmark, as you can see, past 15 years, year over year, the compound annual growth rate, meaning the share price appreciation plus the dividends paid out. This is how much your money would have grown, 13.8%, whereas the S&P 500 was 12.3%. And if we back it up just 5 more years, then it was 11.7%, and the S&P 500 was 9.9%, just shy of 10%, as represented by SPY, which is an index fund of the S&P 500. So, Agree Realty, absolutely a dividend compounder with cheese. I'm going to be honest with you, this company is a little more juicier than Realty Income. And to prove my point, let's just compare them against one another. Realty Income Corporation, ticker symbol O, if we do 15 years, Realty Income 294%, Agree Realty 630. If we do 20 years, then it's a little closer, but Agree Realty is still the champion. When we break that down year over year, let's just take a look at what we're going to see. Agree Realty, past 20 years, 11.7%. Realty Income is 10.5%. However, between the two, I would go with Agree Realty. However, they're not at the price point where I want to buy them at. All I'm trying to say is, I don't know about you, but for me, if Agree Realty ever touches the valuations of like 56 or 55 or 54 bucks a share, I'm in. Because their financials, their fundamentals, among the other REITs, I think they're best in class. They're better than Realty Income. I'm man enough to admit it as someone who does not own Agree Realty, whereas I do own shares of Realty Income. ADC is objectively better. At least it is for the time being. Who knows, maybe in the next 5 years, the tables will turn and Realty Income will be better. Pound for pound, once again. And then row number 4, Kinder Morgan, I'm not interested in them. So I think going forward, I think I made a grave mistake by giving spoilers at the beginning of like, oh, I'm not interested or I am interested. I think next time I should just introduce the company and then save that talk and conversation for the end. That way I can explain my thought process of why I'm not interested. Bummer. Okay, that's a lesson learned. So next time I make this video for the next group of stocks that increase their dividend payout, I'm going to remember that. And then we have Fastenal, not interested in them. And then L3 Harris, I am interested in them. And check this out. We're going to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to show you why I am interested in L3 Harris, because they are absolutely a dividend compounder with cheese. They got that Parmesan, dude, I'm telling you. If we do the past 15 years, their total return, taking into account the dividends paid out, it's baked into this figure, this number right here, 512%. I think that's pretty darn good. And when we compare that to the S&P 500, they slightly are better than the market, the rate that you can get by investing into VU or SPY. We're talking about 12.8% for the past 15 years, year over year. S&P 500 was 12.3%. I don't know why I keep doing 15 years. We should just do 20 years, right? Because L3 Harris, 12.5% year over year, whereas the market was 9.9%. So once again, this is a dividend compounder with cheese that I absolutely want in my portfolio. It's just a matter of waiting for the right valuation and price point. If you want to know that, then watch my video that I made, the top 7 military stocks. I promise you it's worth your time. And then row 8, there's Colgate-Palmolive. I was bouncing back and forth whether or not I do want to invest into them or not. And I think about a year and a half ago, I ended up deleting them from my watch list. And reason being is that their performance and accomplishments in the stock market, just a little too slow for my taste. I think it's absolutely a safe, steady compounder. It's just given between the two options of Colgate-Palmolive and Procter & Gamble, I'd rather go with PG. That's just me. That's just my opinion based on what I know about the economic moat surrounding Procter & Gamble with almost all of their products and categories that they operate in. I think Colgate is a steady like number 2 or number 3 in almost everything that they do. Because when you think about dish soap, best in class is what? Dawn. That's made by Procter & Gamble. Palmolive is like the one that you get if you want to save a few pennies here and there. And then their off-brand label, what is it, Ajax? The same story with that one. And we can go down the list talking about laundry detergent, the exact same situation, a scenario, or body wash. It's just Procter & Gamble is best in class, and Colgate is kind of like number 2 or number 3. So I'd rather just go with the number 1. Okay, and then row number 9, not interested in them. And then number 10, Travelers Insurance, not interested in them. Johnson & Johnson, I get it. They're steady, they're a compounder, but I'm just not interested. And then row 12, Procter & Gamble, hear me out. The reason why I am willing to buy into them for the right price point is, check this out. When we take a look at their dividend profile, I get it. Their dividend yield at 2.4% is not that juicy. It's just decent, right? I would say it's average. But what you want to keep in mind is that their dividend growth rate, this number right here, growing at 6.4%. And the kicker here is they've been growing their dividend payout for the past 69 years old. Now, riddle me this. I don't think there's a single person watching this video right now that has pants on. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't think there's anyone watching this video that is older than how long that Procter & Gamble has been growing their dividend payout. If you're 70 or 71, please comment and let me know. If you can't comment or you don't know how, please ask your niece, your nephew, or your neighbor to help you out, and just let me know, because I think that's pretty darn cool to see someone who's like 70 or 71 watching the content. To see that visually depicted is just a beautiful picture. October of 2015 used to get 66 cents every 90 days. And then just look at how the payout has been consistently and reliably through the pandemic sell-off at 2020 and 2021. They still increased their dividend payout. So, knowing that, I am willing to invest into Procter & Gamble, but only at the right price point. This is not a 10x type of compounder, but rather I think it's one of the more very slow and steady compounders available. Whereas on the other hand, when I think about L3 Harris, I think they're on the other side of that scale, and they're probably going to compound faster than Procter & Gamble, at least for the next 10 to 20 years. And then row 13, I already ruined it. I should have said all of that commentary here, why I wouldn't invest into them, because I would rather invest into Next Era Energy or to double down on my investment into American Waterworks. But it's basically that. And then we have Occidental Petroleum, not interested in them. And then there was Devon Energy, and I deleted them. But yeah, not interested in them either. There's JetQ. And you might be like, why? Why did you say you're not interested? Because when it comes to that steady income type of investment that pays like 12 or 11% dividend yield, dude, I would rather just go with a BDC like ARK, Main Street Capital, or Blue Owl. Because their business model and operations make more sense to me than doing covered call ETFs to generate an income. Like, I get how they do it. I would rather invest into the NASDAQ 100 than to invest into someone doing covered calls on it to generate, dividends. But the point is, if I want a really high dividend yield, I'd rather just go with a BDC. And I say that as a guy that used to be very skeptical and cynical of BDCs because of what I saw on the internet, on Reddit, on Twitter. Everyone used to say, oh, BDCs are value traps. You just lose your money for that high dividend yield. And so I just dismissed them for the longest time. And then sometime last year, I decided to just do my own research and homework and look into Main Street Capital and Ares Capital. Come to find out, Dude, they're a lot better than the S&P 500, and I would argue they're probably in the top like 5% of all stocks in the stock market that pay a dividend right now. And if you already watched my BDC ranking video, then you're probably nodding your head like, yeah, we know. But if you haven't watched that video, go and watch it. It's pretty eye-opening. BDCs are pretty darn good, especially if you're interested in dividend investing. And then Dick's Sporting Goods, not interested in them. Costco, row 17. Let me show you this. You're not essentially investing into Costco for their dividend payout, okay? Rather, you got to treat Costco like it's a high growth company, as if they're Palantir. Because if we zoom out and do 15 years, your total return based on their share price going up plus the dividends paid out, 2,600%. Dude, that is not even funny. That's just ridiculous. If we zoom out even further in 20 years, 3,800%. Now, I'm really stupid because I used to be invested into them, I think in 2018 or 2019. And then I decided to sell out of them like the stupid guy that I am. Sometime during the pandemic when they went up like 100 or 200%, I was like, dude, I'm just gonna seize my gains and walk out of here. Little did I know that they were just gonna go up and up and up and defy the odds. Costco is just, it's a crazy compounder. And if we scroll down to look at their CAGR, their compound annual growth rate, it's just as ridiculous as their total return. 24.7% year over year for the past 15 years to that of 12.3% the S&P 500. That's crazy. And then moving on to row 18, TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and not interested. And the reason being is, I think I touched upon it on my stock analysis video for Ross Stores, but I would rather just invest into the retail brand itself, not the company that's selling them in their stores. For instance, I don't know, Patagonia. I know, they're not publicly traded, it's a private company. I would rather just invest into Patagonia, the retail brand, than to invest into TJ Maxx, if that makes sense. It's just my personal preference. And number 19, Williams-Sonoma. I'm just not a fan of their metrics and fundamentals declining. I think they were on a pretty good streak of crushing expectations year after year up until like 2022. After that, dude, they've been just going off the cliff. I think their future does not look too good. Now, I'm stupid, I could be wrong, but I wouldn't want to invest into them as of right now because I think that it resonates a lot with the millennials and the older people, especially during the pandemic. But I think when it comes to home interior design and redecorating the stuff that you have in your house, I think that stuff comes in waves. Like what's trending now might not be hot 5 years from now. And I think the aesthetic that they sell through their various brands, Williams-Sonoma, I think it worked, but they're going to have to go back to the drawing board to figure out how can they resonate with Gen Z. Because now they're the newest group of people and generation going into the workforce, and they're going to be, trying to fill up their apartment or first homes. And as of right now, I don't think it's going to be into one of Williams-Sonoma's stores. Just the hot take. And then there's number 20. JP Morgan Chase. Because when I think about the other banks that are operating in the same space as JP Morgan Chase, like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, I think their reach, scale, strategy, and influence is just that much better than the competition. And I think it reflects in their stock market performance because their adjusted stock price total return for the past 15 years, we're talking about 650%. That's pretty good. And if we include the great financial recession, it's 1,000%. So, JP Morgan Chase is a company that I used to hold in my portfolio. However, when they had that run up during the pandemic, I did sell out of them. Little did I know they were going to go up to above $200 a share. I regret selling out of them, plus Costco. I should not have done that. And then row 21, we have Sanofi. Yes, they increased their dividend by a crazy double-digit amount, but because they're a pharmaceutical, I am discriminating against them. I'm sorry. Anyways, that just about wraps up the video. What do you think? Are you investing into any of these? Are you eyeballing any of these? Do you disagree or agree with my opinions? Let me know. Please, conversations are the best. Because I think that's one of the fun aspects about investing, is the dialogue and just bouncing ideas off of one another. Just my thinking. Anyways, I love you guys. Stay safe. Good luck in the stock market. And I'll talk to you guys really soon. Take it easy. Peace.